I just had my favorite burger. I just had a little plain cheeseburger. Sometime my other favorite burger is a plain hamburger, ketchup mustard on it, and another one is just a plain hamburger with nothing but raw onions.
Five Guys was a hole in the wall that never advertised and refused to deliver to the Pentagon in the early days. Today, it's widely known as America's favorite burger chain and one of the fastest growing in the country. And it all started with a student who was told if he didn't study hard enough, he'd flip burgers for a living. Jerry Merle was born to a middle-class family in Alpena, Michigan. Growing up, his father wasn't around much. He was more interested in being an adventurer than family-oriented. So Jerry's mother supported the family financially and divorced his father early in their marriage. Outside the home, Jerry faced other struggles. If you don't study hard enough, you'll end up flipping burgers, a nun at his Catholic school warned. At the time, it didn't seem like a bad idea. In his town, a man by the name of Push-'em-Up Tony's ran a tiny hamburger joint alongside his cat and always seemed happy.
He had a grill, and he didn't sell anything except hamburgers. People used to come from all over town to get hamburgers there.
Still, Jerry didn't end up flipping burgers as the nun expected. Instead, he graduated from high school and studied art at Alpena Community College. Afterwards, he managed to transfer to the University of Michigan to pursue an economics degree.
I got scared there. I said, my God, how am I going to make it in this world with all these smart people around?
Along with feeling like an outcast, Jerry struggled to get by. He had no money and no place to stay, so he worked in the dorms, managed the fraternity kitchen, and even worked at a diner. To him, the restaurant business had a magical quality to it. He often thought he'd rather be there than in class. In his final year of college, he had all the more reason to. Both of his parents passed away. Fortunately, he still managed to graduate and earn his economics degree, but he continued to face many ups and downs. He moved back to his hometown, got a job selling life insurance, married his high school sweetheart, and had 3 sons named Matt, Jim, and Chad. But the marriage didn't last. Jerry's wife moved to Florida and took the kids with her. It was one of the lowest points of Jerry's life. He floated around from city to city and wasn't sure what he was going to do next. Eventually, he slowly started to figure things out in Washington. He was offered a consulting job and became a financial planner. Later, he moved to Alexandria, where he met his second wife, Janie. Meanwhile, Jerry couldn't stop thinking about his kids. He had hoped not only to reunite with them, but to provide for them under his own roof as well. So along with being a financial planner, he started a few different businesses.
So I started an oil business in Texas, and I did a couple other dumb things. I tried to start a water business of all things. I thought selling bottled water back then would have been a good idea. And everybody laughed at me. I had a hard time raising.
It wasn't until Jerry's sons were close to attending college that he came up with a billion-dollar idea, 5 Guys. One day, Jerry walked up to his wife Janie with a new business idea. Let's open up a restaurant and only serve hamburgers and fries, he suggested. Are you out of your mind? Janie replied. Jerry didn't see it that way. He remembered how he and the kids would visit Ocean City and spot dozens of places that sold boardwalk fries. Among them was a place called Thrasher's that always had a line. They served nothing but fries, but they cooked them right with high-quality potatoes and peanut oil. That impressed me. I thought a good hamburger and fry place could make it. Jerry knew he couldn't do it alone, so he enlisted help from his sons, Matt, Jim, and Chad. None of them wanted to go to college, so he used the money saved up for their tuition and put it towards the restaurant. It was just enough to find a place with low rent, but it couldn't be just any place. Jerry insisted it be out of the way and hard to find. That way, if people came, he knew he was onto something. When it came to their menu, Jerry didn't spend hours trying to figure out the best products. Instead, he gave his sons the final say. Each of them had no idea that their top picks were the most expensive. Jerry and Janie thought it was better not to tell them how much they were paying to avoid compromising quality. As for the potatoes, it was the only product that Jerry handpicked. He sourced them from the same person as Thrasher's, a small potato dealer named Ricky Miles. 3 days before opening, Jerry still worked as a stock and bond trader and had to stay at a hotel in Pittsburgh for a meeting. Inside his hotel room, tucked into a nightstand, was a book about billionaire J.W. Marriott. Jerry picked it up and discovered he turned an A&W root beer stand into a hot shops chain, all before opening a hotel. In the book, J.W. shared, "Anybody can make money in the food business as long as you have a good product, reasonable price, and a clean place." At that moment, Jerry vowed to make sure that his customers knew he cared about them and the quality of their food. That's why the decor is so simple, red and white tiles. We don't spend our money on decor. Or on guys in chicken suits, but we'll go overboard on food. In 1986, the Merles opened their first store in Arlington, Virginia, using old equipment they rebuilt themselves. They simply called it Five Guys to represent Jerry, his 3 sons, and another son on the way. It was in the middle of nowhere, had no parking, and didn't have any seats for customers to sit down and eat. So it was no surprise that when they opened at 11, they had 0 customers. Eventually, one person did walk in, and by 12:30, the restaurant was packed. The Merles made a profit on their first day of opening. While some called them crazy for selling hamburgers that cost 3 times more than McDonald's, the restaurant did well. Even the Pentagon called to make a delivery order, but the Merles turned down their request. Afterwards, Jerry and Matt bought a 22-foot-long banner that read, "Absolutely no delivery," and hung it in front of their store. From then on, business picked up. The Merles proved that many Americans were done with products made with frozen food and microwaves and were willing to pay more for quality. A few years later, Jerry decided it was time to open a second location. In spite of his finance background and early success, he had a hard time raising money.
I can remember going in the bank and they said, "You're going to do what?" I said, "I want to open another hamburger place." And it was just, they laughed at us.
Banks called Jerry crazy for competing with McDonald's and Burger King and refused to lend him money for a new store. Fortunately, Matt and Jim came up with an idea. Their friends' parents had a bit of extra money and knew Five Guys was doing well, so they decided to ask each of them if they were willing to invest a few $1,000s. In return, they would receive a percentage of their gross income at the end of the month. Matt and Jim's plan worked, and by 1989, they opened their second location. By then, Jerry decided to commit to the business full-time and quit his job as a financial planner. Janie was upset and told him it was too risky, but Jerry had a gut feeling the second location would succeed. He was right. By 2002, the Merles owned 5 restaurants within Northern Virginia. While they were still just getting by, they perfected their system. It was then that the sons proposed a new business idea, one that would involve bigger risks and potentially greater rewards. "We need to start franchising," they told Jerry. Jerry was dead set against the idea.
You originally were against franchising it. Why?
Oh, I still am.
He didn't think that people would be interested or that they would maintain quality. But like their father, the sons had a gut feeling franchising would succeed, as long as they never cut costs. Hell-bent on convincing their father, they gave him a book called Franchising for Dummies by Dave Thomas, the founder of Wendy's. They even brought in a former NFL player, Mark Moseley, who sold franchises for another company. Eventually, Jerry reluctantly agreed and appointed Mark as their salesman. "I'm going to sell this many restaurants within a year," Mark told them. "Just cut your target number in half. If you're planning on selling 50, cut it down to 25, Jerry insisted. He was terrified that franchising would fail and could barely sleep. Mark didn't hit the number that Jerry expected. Instead, he sold 3,500 franchises that covered the entire US within 2 years. Today, Five Guys has expanded to Canada, United Kingdom, Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. It's been voted America's favorite hamburger chain and is one of the fastest growing chains in the US. In an interview, Jerry revealed what led to his family's success. "We have no secrets. Good food, good service. This is the story of how a struggling student who doubted himself became known as the king of burgers and built a billion-dollar chain with his family. For more inspiring stories and advice from today's most successful leaders, don't forget to subscribe to our channel.